Hello, welcome or welcome back. Despite the fact that reading is such an important part of my life, I have a reading channel, etc., right now I'm not feeling super enthusiastic about reading. And so I wanted to talk about reading slumps and some ideas to get out of them, general ideas, and then also some specific books that I think might help.
Bibliosophie.
First off, what is a reading slump? I think it can mean a couple of different things. It can mean that you just can't focus on reading at all for whatever reason. You don't have time, you don't have the mental capacity, you don't have the concentration, but it can also mean that you are actively reading and maybe reading quite a lot. You just don't feel like it's hitting. I am currently not reading too much because I feel like when I am reading, I'm not super enthusiastic about what I am reading. I can't really kind of dive into what I am reading. And they're kind of connected and also kind of separate. They can go together. I think it's important to figure out which it is to a certain extent, to give a diagnosis. My first idea is to just ride out the slump. Why is it that you need to read? I think it's worth asking yourself, is it that you have to for, your school, your job, whatever, but that's not really what we're talking about when we're talking about a reading slump, right? Ideally, we are reading for pleasure as well, and sometimes that pleasure just isn't coming. So why do you need to read? It's okay to put things down. I think a lot of us right now, especially if we make content about reading or such things, are wondering about the overconsumption of reading. There are many think pieces and videos, etc., about overbuying, whatever, but even on a micro level, on a personal level, why is it that we feel like we constantly need to be consuming culture? Even things that are supposed to be good for us, why do we need to be constantly reading, hitting numbers, and just always on to the next thing? We don't. We really don't. So if you are not enthusiastic about reading for a period of time, just slump it out. It's okay. Relatedly, my second point is that you need to realize that you might not be able to recreate those magical moments in your life when reading was just all-consuming and fabulous. You loved reading when you were 15 on summer holiday. Well, you were 15 on summer holiday and you were at the beach. I'm talking from experience. Maybe the high isn't hitting because you're just not in that place in your life. And I find myself constantly just thinking back to really magical periods of time in my life when I was just gobbling up books and having such wonderful, heady thoughts. I can't recreate that because I can't recreate those conditions. So stop chasing the high that you think you can have. You can't recreate it exactly necessarily. Find a new high. Something else might come, but you just are not going to recreate the particular high of reading that particular book on that particular vacation that you took. That said, obviously, if you are a reader, you do want to get the pleasure of reading back. Number 3 is put down the damn phone. I am not the first person to say this. This is obvious, right? But it's worth saying the obvious sometimes. And I'm saying it to myself. Sophie, put down the damn phone. It is not helping your reading slump at all. And stop thinking that you're going to find something new on your phone. Every so often, sure. Look, I'm not an advocate for completely removing technology from your life. I'm not doing a digital detox. I like my connection. I like my social media, sometimes too much, but yeah, we lose so much concentration, so much time even on a basic level on our damn phone. So put it down, and especially if I'm in a kind of slumpier part of my life, the phone is way worse. If I'm actually really on, I think the phone doesn't slow me down that much. It's not as destructive. But if I'm already in a spiral, it's so much worse. So you need to realize that if you're already kind of flat, the phone is only flattening you further. I'm sorry. Number 4, narrow the field. This is very much a tip for myself because sometimes I get really overly, let's say, greedy about wanting to read everything and I can't concentrate. I think the phone definitely contributes to that, but it's also just hearing about books on YouTube, hearing about books from people in my life, reading book reviews, having the Paris Review, London Review of Books, New York Review of Books, all of these things coming at me. Oh, I need to check this out. Oh, I've always wanted to read this classic. It's too much. And sometimes you just gotta put down the other books as well. I am not a book monogamist. I've talked about this on this channel a lot. I tend to read several books at once. Usually I can manage that, and then sometimes I absolutely cannot. I need to just kind of narrow my focus and find a book that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to contradict myself slightly with number 5. Reach out to people, get recommendations, find obligations. Find a buddy read, find recommendations from friends or from people around you, interact with people so as to read. But again, be careful, right? Too many recommendations can be overwhelming in my experience. So you might want to curate that. Curate the people and curate this type of book recommendation, that you do want to get. I started this channel because I wanted to interact with people about books. I was watching YouTube channels that were talking about books, and I wanted to force myself to talk about books. And it's been a really wonderful tool. But when you kind of intertwine thoughts about books and your relationship to thinking critically about the books you've read and creating content, that can also lead to fatigue. So unfortunately, there is always the possibility of problems with any of these ideas because you can go too far in one direction. I think part of what is making me a little under enthusiastic right now about books is actually that I don't really want to make content about books all the time. So, I take weeks off. It's fine. I do recommend a one-on-one buddy read for that reason, maybe even in person, because first of all, it keeps you more heavily accountable, of course, and also it just is less about content making, and it is more about just having a real relationship to the book and then to another person, getting their relationship. You can sometimes kind of catch their enthusiasm. It can be very propulsive to talk to someone. Number 6, a very small thing, read first thing in the morning, read before going to bed. I almost never read before going to bed, but I do love reading first thing in the morning. And again, this is not original and new, but it's worth saying. I think it's a really good time in the day to be enthusiastic about reading. And even if you're a little bit blurry-eyed, just get into it. And I think it sets you up nicely for the rest of your day. I am not somebody who believes that reading is this like moral thing. I don't love that it has become part of a productivity mindset and like holistically healthy you. I mean, it is, but you don't need to read because it's part of a, healthy challenge to change your life. However, it does, I think, set you up nicely for the day, and it's this quiet, but it's kind of quietly active in a way that is actually, I think, really good to start the day. Number 7, also super simple, pick up a beautiful book, an actual beautiful object. Be enthusiastic about the little things, the physical things of bookishness. Again, don't go too far because I think then it becomes this performance of reading. We see this way too much, especially if you're content creating, but in a simple, beautiful way, can you love the object and can that bring you joy? Number 8, graze. Again, I'm kind of contradicting myself because I've said narrow the field and just concentrate on one book. Well, or do the opposite. Read parts of books. It's very, very novel-centric to think that reading is only starting from the beginning, ending at the end, and then you get to check it off. It's also very, very Goodreads-esque, right? You get to count the book you have read because you get to add it to your list of books for the year. You don't need to read 100 books a year. You don't need to read 50 books a year. And you certainly don't need to read full books to count as enthusiastically reading. Read a poem, read a short story, read part of an article. You can have a very good interaction with books in that way. And I'm trying to think of that for myself because sometimes I just want to read a section of a book and it's enough. I'm getting a lot from that. So you don't need to read 300 pages to feel like you've read something. It's fine. Number 9, reread something familiar that you know you love. Re-explore something. Go back to the things that you know made you enthusiastic about reading. Do they also make you enthusiastic now? Or do you get something different out of it? Can you put yourself back in a mindset, or can you evolve it to a new mindset? And finally, you can probably guess what number 10 is going to be. Of course, it's the opposite of number 9. Read something new. And this can be reading different type of books, or new genres, new authors, etc. But it can also be reading in a new way, with a new medium. So listening to audiobooks if you're not used to it, or writing about books, composing things about books, reading in different places that you're not used to reading in, varying book lengths, reading at different times of the day, just diversifying not just the books themselves, but also how you interact with them. Reading quickly if you're used to really, really scrutinizing usually, or vice versa. I would say to think critically about what newness actually means. I think a lot of people think they read more diversely than they actually do. It's worth having a conversation with yourself as to what newness is. If you're reading a lot of contemporary fiction, the writing style is not that different. Go to a different decade, go to a different country, investigate what diversity of writing can mean, because it's not always what we think it is. And now I humbly present to you 10 books that I think could really help you if you're currently in a reading slump. These books are not just compelling and good and interesting reads. I think they are that. But I've also specifically picked books that are about the enthusiasm for storytelling and reading. I've tried to pick things that really encourage wanting to read. And a lot of these interact with the concept of storytelling and sometimes specifically the concept of reading and reading through things. Half of them are quite short because I think it's helpful. It can sometimes be overwhelming to take on a big book, but some of them are not that short at all. First up is Possession by A.S. Byatt. This one is not short, but it is very engrossing, and I think sometimes it's nice to just dig into a pretty lengthy book. This is a literary archive mystery, and it's great for reading nerds. For that reason, it's a love story, multiple love story. It's a mystery of trying to read through the academic archive and parse out something that has been hidden or lost for about a century. And I think it really fosters an enthusiasm for reading into things. Number 2 is My Death by Lisa Tuttle. This is very similar to Possession. It is also an archive mystery, but it's much shorter. So if you don't feel like taking on a big, long book, I would suggest My Death. You could probably read it in about a day. It's weird, and it's also just kind of like will get you into it, I think, really, really quickly. The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante is really compelling, and you just dig into this world. I think it creates such a specific sense of setting and time, and you get really obsessive. The main protagonist is in a whole spiral, and I think it can really invite you into that spiral. It's relatively short as well, so it's a good kind of dive into something. The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginzburg does a similar thing. It's also very short, even shorter, and immediately you are just in it. And I think it really, really pulls you in, gets you thinking obsessively. It's very much about a narrative and kind of recalibrating a personal narrative, who gets to tell a story. And I think you will really want to sink your teeth into this very, very propulsive story. Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid is a book I love. It is very short and it really invites you into its world. The main protagonist, Lucy, is interesting and wry and mature and immature all at the same time. She's coming of age, but she is so compelling to follow. It's a small story in many ways, and one that really gets you to go on its little arc with it. It's a simple, beautiful story about kind of opening up into the world. Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. If you're thinking about books that are good to get out of a slump, you might think about books that are easy to read, right? Page turners. I'm going to propose Minor Detail, which is a harrowing book, because sometimes a heavy, important book is also what you need. Sometimes that can get you enthusiastic about reading. This is a dual timeline book that takes place in 1949 and modern day Palestine. It is also an archive history mystery, and it is also very much a book about obsession, about trauma, historical trauma, personal trauma, and the way that can so much consume people. Autumn by Ali Smith is a much, much breezier book. I recommend Ali Smith, kind of any Ali Smith, if you're trying to get out of a slump and if you've not read her, because of her enthusiasm for literature. She plays so much with language and plays on a knowledge of other books that can really, really, I think, encourage your own playful relationship to reading, to the things you have read. This is about connection to people, and it just takes you along in this lovely way. Abigail by Magda Szabó is another kind of mystery. It takes place during World War II in Hungary, and it is about perspective. It's also a coming of age novel, and it's very much about kind of secrets and lies, and also mostly the things that we don't know. It's about a change in perspective, a realization about the limitations of what you know about a situation, and that makes it a really compelling book about narrative storytelling and who knows what and how. The Latinist by Prins is for you lovers of dark academia. This takes place in a classics department, and it also has some elements of mystery. It definitely has elements of searching in the archive of relationship to text, because these are classicists who are looking into translations and relationships to ancient authors, also relationships to one another. There's obsession. It's a fun and kind of dark ride. And finally, number 10, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. This is a mystery. There's been that theme. It is very compelling. It is dark. It's a wild ride, and it's very much about storytelling. Our main narrator is a wild ride all to herself, and you just can't quite pin her down. I won't say any more than that because I think it would be spoiling some things, but it, I think, does very interesting things with how we consume narratives, how we consume stories, who's to be trusted, etc. And that's it. That's what I've got for you. I would love to know in the comments what are your tactics for beating a slump and what books you recommend either to me or to other people in general for kind of getting out of a slump, for rekindling an enthusiasm for reading. I'm always looking for new books. So I would love to hear your recommendations. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.